What is up, YouTube? It's been a while. I've been having some computer issues, so I wasn't able to post videos for a while. But just knowing you now, I'm not yet, I haven't solved the problem yet. So meanwhile, till I get a new laptop, I'm gonna be posting like short videos like this. Well, this is gonna be a long video still, but what I'm gonna talk about today is for you like beginners, I guess. I'll talk about the differences between lines. So the difference between monofilament, fluorocarbon, and braid. So I'm talking about that. I'm talking about the advantage, any disadvantage, and yeah, we'll see from there. So, okay, first let's talk about monofilament here. Let's talk about the disadvantage with mono. The bad thing about mono is that it absorbs light and water, which will like weaken in time. So that's one bad thing about mono. Another one is it's not as sensitive, so you can't detect bites with those shy biting bass. The amount of stretch that this line has, when you make that long distance cast and get a bite, you won't detect it as if you're using fluorocarbon or braid. So that's another thing. So yeah, about the stretch too. It could affect your hook sets depending on what baits you use and all that. And you have to change it more frequently. You have to change it if you go fishing like 3 times a week. You have to change it like in the month probably. So that's one bad thing about mono. Now let's talk about the advantage with mono. Sometimes you want to use mono. Example, when you are using like a topwater bait with exposed hooks, just like a popper or spook. That's for monofilament line. Oh yeah, and I guess another advantage is that you can find monofilament at any store, and it's also the cheapest type of line for out of all of these three. So it's the cheapest type of line. Next, we got some fluorocarbon line here. Okay, let's talk about disadvantage of fluorocarbon. It tends to be a bit more expensive than mono, and you can't use it on topwater baits because fluorocarbon has density, meaning it will sink as mono floats. And also, it's a little bit harder to use especially for beginners. It's a little bit harder to use. But other than that, there's not really that much disadvantages in mono. Advantage with mono. It doesn't stretch, which means better hookups and more hookups. And fluorocarbon is more sensitive than mono, so you know if a shy bass has your bait or not. Another thing is just straight up longer life and strong line. I mean, fluorocarbon has a long life, and its knot strength is strong too. And fluorocarbon is pretty much invisible underwater. Of course, the lighter you go, the more invisible it is. And also, on any type of line, the lighter you go, the more action you have on your bait. So that's another thing. One good thing about fluorocarbon too, when you're pitching it or just casting it, whatever, like in a bunch of, I guess, rocks or something like that, it doesn't nick your line too much, which will stay stronger longer, so you won't lose that big bass that you have on the end of your line. So that's fluorocarbon right there, and of course it's a little bit more expensive than mono, but it's worth it, trust me. Next we got some braided line. In this case it's 30-pound braid. You can't really see it because, anyways, braid. It's very more expensive than fluorocarbon sometimes, but that's one disadvantage. Another disadvantage is that it's visible. As you can see it, it's 100% visible. So use the leader line. Tie on the leader and use this as your main, and then tie a leader of Flouro or Mono. And it's more difficult to use for beginners too. But other than that, there's not really too much disadvantages than that. It floats too, by the way, Braid. So that's why a lot of people use, when they're using frogs, they use 100% Braid, which you should be using because that's the way to use. That's the way it works. Advantages with Braid: very strong, tough line, doesn't break. Also too, that's really neat about Braid was that it has a very small diameter, so you could put 50-pound braid line on a bait caster with no problem. Meaning the lighter line you put, the more line you could, of course, have on your reel. Another good thing, it doesn't absorb light or water at all, so it has a very long life. Some people could have the same line after a year and still be as strong as the day they bought it sometimes. So that's one really neat thing about Braid, is the strengthness and the diameter of it. Another good thing, it has no stretch at all. So it's 100% like really sensitive. You could feel the bottom, feel those little bass biting maybe the tip of your bait or something. So you could know if you have a fish on you or not. As I said, braid floats and has no stretch. That's why you see people using 100% braid on their reel when using frogs. So there you have it, guys. You got the braid, you got the fluorocarbon, you got the mono, and that's pretty much all. That's all the details you have to know about these lines, to be honest. I'll be making more videos like this, tips and stuff. You know, hope you guys enjoy these videos. Oh yeah, and another thing, knots. When you're tying a knot with mono, you want to tie like a polymer knot. Most of the time, you see me tying a polymer knot, and since fluorocarbon, you don't want to tie on a polymer knot because it crosses and it just cuts. So each time you cast, it cuts into your line. So then eventually you get these nicks in your line and you actually end up breaking off. So when you use fluorocarbon line, you want to use the improved clinch knot. That's the line I'm like almost using all the time when I'm using fluorocarbon. And the thing about braid you could use a polymer knot, but sometimes if you don't make that little mistake tying the knot, it could slip. So I recommend using a double polymer knot, which would make double the strength, and it won't slip. That's a good thing about the double polymer knot. That's stronger. So there you have it, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video about line. There's 3 types of line, and have a good one.